extremely grateful to be here, and I'm grateful to the organizing committee for allowing me to give this presentation today, and especially for the travel grant I was granted because my university actually does not support my research. However, I wish I were not here today because the issues, the problems, or more specifically, more exactly, the tragedy I'm going to talk about is 100% preventable. I wish Russia never invaded Ukraine. I wish this war never brought this destruction to the indigenous communities. And also, I wish this talk were presented by an Arctic Indigenous person, my co-author, Pavel Sulenziga, and he is an UDG person, and he is a very prominent indigenous rights activist. However, because of his immigration status as a political refugee in the United States, he cannot leave the country. So I am here to a large extent on behalf of him. So, yes, this is my co-author, Pavel Sulenziga, and actually a lot of information, a lot of data in this talk is was collected by the Bodø Indigenous Foundation, which he is the president of. So from the very beginning of the Russian invasion of Ukraine on February 24th, 2022, it became obvious that Russia's ethnic minorities are overrepresented, both among the invading army troops and among the Russian side casualties. However, many media narratives were based on anecdotal evidence or rumors, and actually many stories turned out not to be true. At the same time, first of all, Russia never discloses any information on the number of casualties or, of course, on their ethnic composition. And everyone is talking about Tuvans and Buryats, the indigenous Siberian nations. I'm an ethnic Buryat, by the way. So everyone is talking about Buryats and Tuvans being overrepresented. However, no one talks about Arctic indigenous people who were also hard, really hit really hard by this war. And actually, we were the first, I and my co-author, Evgeny Cherkhonov, were the first to analyze the ethnic composition of the Russian side war casualties from the Republic of Sakha-Yakutia. We were first discovered that the Arctic, small-numbered Arctic indigenous nations are also overrepresented among the war casualties. So, how was the data collected? The data was collected based on the obituaries and social media posts by a number of activist groups, including the activist group famously collaborating with Mediazona media outlet, and also by the indigenous activists. If we look at the top 10 Russia's regions by the number of confirmed casualties, we see that out of 10 regions, 3 regions are actually from the Arctic. It's Nenets Autonomous Okrug, it's Chukotka, and it is Magadan region. So clearly, those Arctic regions are overrepresented among the top 10 by per capita casualties. And if we look at the ethnic composition, this is what we see. So clearly, the top 2 rows are Buryats and Tuvans, and it is widely known that they are indeed overrepresented among the war casualties. But if we look at the indigenous Arctic and small-numbered nations of Siberia and Far East, we can see that some of them are even more overrepresented, including, for instance, Chukchi people, Telembits of Altai, and Nganasans. Actually, Nganasans have 12 times greater per capita death toll compared to Russia's average. So it is not just a problem, it is a disaster. And actually whole indigenous communities are at risk of being wiped out. For instance, if we look at the next slide, during the 2022 mobilization effort, in some cases in the Khabarovsk region, in some native settlements, the authorities attempted to draft 30 to 100% of working age male population. That means that the whole communities of Udege and Nanai people are actually at risk of disappearing within probably 1 or 2 generations if this practice continues. Also in the Republic of Sakha-Yakutia, in the only settlement where there is a significant Chukchi population, up to 10% of the working age male population was drafted. And according to the officials from the Khabarovsk region, 200 indigenous men were drafted in September-October 2022, and this is 4.5 to 9 times greater mobilization rate per 1,000 population compared to Russia's average. So there are 4 categories of casualties. Some of them were professional soldiers who were already served in the army as of February 24, 2022. Some of them were drafted during the mobilization effort. Some were convicts recruited from prisons, and some were the so-called volunteers. And it looks like the Arctic Indigenous people are overrepresented among all 4 categories. And speaking about the volunteers, I just want to warn you against thinking that they decided to participate in this war at 100% at their own will, because there is a lot of deception, coercion, and brainwashing going on, and it is directed in many cases selectively at the indigenous people of the north. And generally speaking, the Kremlin is trying to shift the burden on this war on the shoulders of the most vulnerable, discriminated or marginalized groups, including convicts, migrants, orphans, homeless people, and unfortunately ethnic minorities are also one of these groups. And also the mobilization effort and recruitment effort is largely focused on rural areas. And in the Arctic regions, the rural areas is where the indigenous population is concentrated. And also, the Kremlin is trying to shift the moral burden of this war onto the indigenous people. What do I mean by the moral burden? It is the so-called warlike savage stereotype, which is exploited by propaganda, and basically it's not just the Kremlin, but also the whole international community actually is often portraying Russia's ethnic minorities as committing all the war crimes in Ukraine and being the most savage warriors in Ukraine. And even such moral, figures of authority such as Pope Francis, the head of Catholic Church, actually fell to this narrative, and they started spreading these lies. And the demonization of Chechen people of North Caucasus initially spilled over towards Buryat people like myself, and then, as I learned yesterday, it's also spilled over to the Nenets people. So this is a disaster because it makes us indigenous people of Russia a target for hate crimes, actually, and some of us live in Ukraine, and some of us have to hide their actual ethnic identity because it's now not safe to be a Buryat person, for instance, in Ukraine. And also, actually, there were some cases of attacks or people being bullied outside Russia and in Europe and in the US. So it is also a moral disaster, and I urge you, if you encounter this kind of exoticization and blaming this war onto Russia's ethnic minorities, please don't be silent, please say something. Because if we commit ourselves to decolonial research and speaking about the indigenous people, we cannot stay silent on this matter. Thank you for your attention.